Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today's session is the fourth and final part in a four-part series about apps on Azure, where we have been discussing some of the most popular Azure Cloud Services together with various concepts to help you learn and implement them in your cloud applications. In today's session, we will be covering Azure API Management Service, a multi-cloud API management platform for securing, publishing, and analyzing APIs. Through this content today, you will learn about some key concepts related to Azure API Management and how to use it to protect your APIs. This is Hassam Mohsina from Microsoft Reactor Abu Dhabi. Microsoft Reactors are hubs for founders and developers to meet, learn, and connect to local peers, as well as industry-leading ideas and technology from Microsoft partners and the open source community. It's also home to the Microsoft for Startups program. With a diverse mix of hands-on workshops, expert panels, and community events, there's something for everyone. Check out our calendar of events on meetup.com and join our upcoming sessions. We continue the series with Daniel Kay. Daniel is a software engineer who's passionate about Microsoft technologies, awarded with Microsoft MVP title, Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. He's actively sharing knowledge about Microsoft Azure, IoT, Universal Windows Platform, and much more. And he's a content and courses author on Plural site and a regular speaker at the national and international conferences. He has a technical blog called techmindfactory.com. I highly encourage you to check out his blog for content and to further your knowledge, and also to connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm going to share these links in the Q&A tab. So during today's session, as always, keep the Q&A tab open and check all the links and resources that I will be sharing with you during today's session. Some will be related to Learn modules that you can continue learning with, and some will be, for example, the GitHub repo, which you can get all the code content to follow along. This session is recorded and it will be available later on our YouTube channel. So also, if you want to catch up and follow along as well after the session, then you can also do that. I think that's all for now. Yeah, one minor thing. I always get this question. If you are facing any issue streaming with the content, so here towards the corner, there is this icon, like a settings icon, where you can adjust the playback quality and try to select the highest quality available, and we will also keep the content like large so that it doesn't blur on your screen. But at any point, if you face any issue, the content is recorded at high resolution, so you'll find it on YouTube later on. So don't worry, don't stress. It's all good. Try to maximize the benefit during the session and ask as many questions to Daniel, our speaker. All right, that's it for me, Daniel. The mic is with you.
Thank you so much, Hussam, for warm introduction, as always. Let me enable my camera and we will start. So yeah, it should work as expected. Yeah, should be visible right now. And let me share my screen.
Yes, I'm getting your camera, it's live.
Okay, and now you should see the slides.
Yes, all good.
Great.
As well.
So we can start. Thank you so much for the. Hello everyone and welcome to this fourth part of the series Apps on Azure. And as Hussam mentioned, today we are going to discuss Azure API Management, which is, I would say, a really extensive service available in the Microsoft Azure Cloud. and it can help you managing your APIs, secure access to those APIs, and this is and I can say that this can be really helpful for your projects. It doesn't matter if you use microservices architecture, if you do not use it. API management can help with many different scenarios. So I encourage you to play around this service. I hope that today's content will help you understand what Azure API Management is, when it should be used, and how you can use it. So before we start, as Hussam mentioned, I really encourage you to visit my blog, techmindfactory.com, where you can find the series of the articles related with fake cars rental company called Cars Island. And I also put some information in one of the articles about the Azure API Management, so you can find it there. And if you would like to connect, here is my Twitter, here is my LinkedIn. So I encourage you to contact me if you will have any questions after the session. You can also contact me and I'm happy to help. This is the solution architecture we are going to discuss today, and probably some of you you saw this this architecture and this fake solution I created. It's called Cars Island, and as you can see in this Cars Island, I use Azure API Management to communicate with my backend API. And of course, the source code solution is available on my GitHub, so you can find it under my GitHub in Cars Island on Azure repository. But today we will focus on the Azure API Management service, and we will see how this service can help us build secure, and also how to secure access to our APIs and how to control this access. So first of all, there is one question: what is Azure API Management? So Azure API Management is service available in the Azure Cloud to create a consistent and modern API gateways for existing backend services. So here, today, I will show you how to use Azure API Management with the ASP.NET Core Web API behind it. But please keep in mind that if you have any other APIs that are not hosted even in Azure Cloud, you can still use Azure API Management to communicate with them. And this service provides secure, scalable API access to your apps. So you can try to imagine that even if you have like an old backend service somewhere, and this backend service provides open API definition, you can still hide this service behind the Azure API Management and enable communication with this service through the Azure API Management. So today I will talk about the Azure Cloud Infrastructure, but please keep in mind that you can use Azure API Management also with your backend services hosted somewhere else, not on the Azure Cloud. So first of all, we have to discuss Azure API Management components. So this is crucial to understand the structure of the Azure API Management to move forward and to know how to configure it. So the most important component of Azure API Management is API Gateway. You can treat it as like a central point, a hub of the Azure API Management, and this API Gateway accepts API calls and routes them to your backend services. So every request that is sent to the Azure API Management is then forwarded to a specific backend. And this can be really powerful because you can before the request is sent to your API directly, you can control this request. So for instance, you can restrict the access to specific APIs, or you can, for instance, secure this API by applying the quota limit. Yeah, so this is really powerful tool. And this API gateway, just to be clear, it forwards requests to your backend services and also provide the responses to the client apps. Then we have Azure Portal, and Some time ago, there was a separate management portal for the Azure API Management, but in the end, Microsoft decided to integrate functionalities directly in the Azure Portal. So there is no additional portal for managing Azure API. You can do it directly from the Azure Portal, and I will show you how to do it today. But this is the administrative interface where you can set up your API program. Yeah. So this is, when we're talking about Azure API Management and managing the instance of it, we use Azure Portal to do it. And in the end, we have a cool developer portal. This is the web user interface for developers, where they can read the API, they can test those APIs, that they can subscribe and receive subscription keys to be able to communicate with web interfaces. And this is really cool, because that's why I use this word cool, because we can publish this developer portal and we can provide the link to our developers. They can sign up, then they can sign in, and they can access all different APIs that are behind the Azure API Management. They can test them directly from the developer portal. They can see the structure of those APIs, the data model, etc. And also we can customize this developer portal to apply our custom branding, like our logo, our custom background, fonts, etc. So it's really extensible package to modify. So those three components are part of the Azure API Management. API Gateway to receive requests and provide responses and forwarding those requests to specific backend services. Azure Portal for managing our Azure API Management instance, and Developer Portal to provide access for developers and enable them to sign up and access our APIs and test them. And now we can also talk about some capabilities related to Azure API Management. So first of all, of course, there is an option to define and import API schemas, and we will talk about it later during the demo. But we can import, for instance, Azure Open API definition and import this definition to API Management and set up the service. There is also Developer Portal to access APIs, as I mentioned before. So there is a dedicated place where developer can go and test and use our APIs. We can also use quotas and rate limits specification, and this is related with policies, which I will describe soon during our session. So for instance, we can limit the amount of the requests that are sent to Azure API Management during a specific period time. And then we can cache backend responses. So this is also really cool, because when you think about the backend service, about your API, for instance, that you wrote in the ASP.NET Core, for instance, you have to also think about the caching mechanism, for instance. And if you have some APIs that do not have a cache implemented, you can implement caching on the Azure API Management. So in this case, you will not have to even touch the source code of your native API, and you still can enable caching. The same is for the security and validating tokens. Yeah, if your backend, for instance, if you like to secure your backend with the access token, you can either implement this functionality on your API directly, or you can set up policy on the Azure API Management. So that's really cool. When talking about Azure API Management, it's also worth to mention products and groups. And there is, from my experience, there is some confusion around that. So I'm really happy that I can discuss this topic today. And I hope that after this session, I will clarify that. So there are those two concepts, products and groups inside Azure API Management. So first of all, let's talk about the products. So the products are how our APIs are surfaced to developers. So you can think about the product like as a box inside which you can put different APIs and then make this box available to developers. So for instance, you can name the product like for instance, unlimited, or you can call the product trial. And inside this trial product, for instance, you can provide access to different APIs and you can apply different policies. And you can say that with the trial product, developers can use this API, but there is a quota limit. Yeah. So this is really important to mention that there are two default products, like the one for trial, and the second one is called unlimited. And there are also groups. So once we define product and once we define APIs for this product, then we can make this product available for specific groups. And this is also important, that by default in the Azure API Management, we have three groups. There are administrators, developers, and guests. So now let me briefly explain what's happening. Once I have this, let's call this is my custom product. I created custom product, or maybe just to be more specific, I created this Cars Island product in my Azure API Management. And this Cars Island product provides the access to my Cars Island web API. And now I want to make it available to some different groups. So if I make it available for administrators, they can of course they can manage this product, they can manage users assigned to these products, etc. If I assign this product to developers, they will be able to sign up first to obtain the subscription key and then use this API. Yeah, so only authenticated user can see and use it. And in the end, we have also those guest users, so they can already see this API, and then they don't have to register to see it and use it. So I will show you that in a minute. But in general, we can have different products. We can assign different APIs to those products. We can apply policies on those products, and then we can make those products available to different groups, like by default administrators, developers, and guests. And of course, we can create custom groups. And as you can see, products can be open or protected, and protected products must be subscribed before they can be used. So in this case, we need a subscription key. And once we have this subscription key, we can call our API. So that's very important. And of course, we can disable it, yeah, to not require this subscription key. And now I mentioned about those three groups. So once again, in Azure API Management, we have administrators, and they are responsible for managing API management service instances, creating the APIs, operations, and products. Then we have developers, so they are granted access to developer portal to build applications that call the operations of an API, or APIs that are behind a specific product inside Azure API Management. And then we have guests. So guests are, the guest is treated as an authenticated developer with certain read-only access, such as the ability to view the API but not call them. Yeah, so the difference between guests and developers is that guests can see the APIs, they can see the structure, they cannot call it, of course, and developers will be able to see APIs only once they are registered. So that's the basic difference. And now when it comes to APIs, as you know, there is also a very important aspect related to versioning and revision. So in this case, let's start with versions. Probably some of you touched the scenarios where you have to version your API, like version 1, version 2, and there are some functionalities added to specific versions. So in Azure API Management, there is this concept called versioning and revisioning. So let me start with versions. You can use versions to handle breaking changes in your API safely. So in this case, as you can see, I have this Cars Island API, and this is the endpoint for calling all available cars. And in the end, I have this V1. So in this case, this is version 1 of my API. But maybe at some point, I will implement some breaking changes in this Cars Island API, and I don't want to break existing application functionalities, so I will decide to publish this API using version 2. So this is very important to mention, that we can version those APIs using Azure API Management. And there is also a concept of revisions. So revisions allow you to make changes to the APIs in a controlled and safe way. So you can apply those changes and you will not disturb API consumers. So in this case, you can add different revisions. You can treat them as, like, for instance, different branches in a Git repository. So this is like revision. Yeah, you can create separate revisions. You can use them, you can test them, you can break them, and you can be sure that you will not break the functionality of existing apps. So there is versioning and revision in API management service. And now we have also a great functionality called policies in Azure API Management. With Azure API Management policies, I mentioned only some of the policies that are available. Believe me that there are more of them, and you can find them in the official documentation for Azure API Management. But those are the most popular, I would say. So for instance, we can convert the XML to JSON. So if our backend service returns data in the XML format, we can transform it to JSON before it's returned to the client application. So this is really cool, because if you have some old backend that is using XML format, but you want to handle it in the modern way in your mobile apps, for instance, using JSON, you can still do it without changing your backend with this specific policy to transform XML to JSON. Of course, we can restrict the amount of incoming calls. So something what is called throttling. So you, for instance, you want to avoid too many calls to your backend services. You do not have to implement this throttling on each API, each backend. You can apply such policy on the Azure API Management. And then, for instance, after 5 calls, within a specific period of time, you can just block those calls and throttle, yeah, and say that please try again after 30 seconds, for instance. Of course, we can enforce presence of some HTTP headers in the requests. We can implement cache for the responses. So as I mentioned before, if you do not have cache implementation on your backend, that's fine. You can still use those policies on the Azure API Management, and you can use this cache. And when it comes to the Azure API Management, there is built-in cache available in the Azure API Management, but of course you can use external cache. So if you would like to use Redis cache, for instance, available in Azure Cloud, you can do it. But please remember that this is like in this case, you will have to add some additional implementation for that. Yeah, so that's about the caching. So you can use internal and external. And when it comes to the consumption plan of the Azure API Management, because it's also available in the serverless mode, there is no internal cache. You can only use external one. So that's very important to remember. So let's see it in action. That's about the theory. I just wanted to briefly go through all the functionalities related to API management, and I hope you found them interesting and helpful. And now let me show you the demo I created in Azure Portal and the service that is available in the Azure Cloud. So as you can see, this is the Azure Portal, and here is my resource group for Cars Island, and I have some different Azure services. And one of them is Azure API Management at the top, and below I have also some other Azure services like Azure Web App for hosting my Cars Island API and some other services. Today we are going to talk about Azure API Management and Azure Web App. So let me start with the Azure Web App and API. So this is a simple Azure App Service, and if I click Browse, you can see that here is the Swagger page displayed. So the API, Open API definition for my API. And you can see that I have some different endpoints implemented on the API side. So for instance, here I can retrieve all available cars. Yeah, so if I click execute, after a few seconds, you can see that here I have different cars that are available in my Cars Island company. Yeah, so this is the simple JSON structure. And now, once I have this API definition, so I have this open API definition, I can click here swagger.json, and as you can see, this is my JSON definition for my API. Yeah, and here we can see that we have different endpoints. We can see what is the request body, what is the encoding, etc. Yeah, so this is my definition for my API, Cars Island. And now, of course, I can communicate with this API directly, but I can decide to hide this API behind the Azure API Management service. Why? Because, for instance, I would like to implement caching, or because I would like to validate access tokens that are attached to some requests. So now if I get back to the Azure portal, here is my Azure API Management instance I created before. And as you can see, there are some different options on the left side. So I just want to go through them briefly, but also talk about the most important ones to make sure that after this session is finished, you can start using API management on your own, and you can test the most important features. So first of all, once you create Azure API Management Service, so here in the resource group, I can click Add, and there is API Management, like this one. You can click Create, and of course, you have to provide some different information like region, like resource name, organization name, administrator email. You have to select the pricing tier. So as I mentioned, there is also consumption mode. So in this case, I selected developer, no SLA. This is the cheapest option, and you can just test the Azure API Management. And once you do it, of course, there are some other options, but the basic stuff is here on this first tab, like you have to provide some details. Once the API management is created, you have access to this management portal. And please note that API management is being created for a few minutes. It's not available after second. You have to wait, and once API management is created, you will be notified by the email. So once the API management is ready, we can use it in the Azure portal. And this is the management portal I talked about during the presentation in the PowerPoint. And here, as you can see, there is the developer portal URL and gateway URL. So this is the URL which we will use to communicate with this API management instance and with backend services. So first of all, let's see how to use and import APIs. So if I click APIs section from the left side, you can see here that I can either define a new API manually on my own, or I can use create from definition. Yeah, and as you can see, there are different options like Open API or some other protocols like the description languages, yeah, for APIs here. But also I can create this API using Azure resources, and this is really cool because here I can use either function app service, or logic app, and then I can integrate this, import this API directly here using Azure API Management configuration blade. So in this case, let me show you a basic scenario for most of the APIs that supports Open API definition. So if I click Open API here, as you can see, I have to provide the link to the Open API specification. And this specification is the JSON I showed you. So this one, if I click this one, Swagger JSON, this is the definition for my API. So if I copy it and paste it in the Azure API Management tab, so I can close this one. Here, I have to provide this link there. I can provide the display name, and please note that display name and name will be filled out automatically from the Open API specification. Of course, you can update the name there or later. You can specify API URL suffix also. If you want to add additional suffix that will be used in the URL, you can do it. And you can see that base URL will be like this one. And once you click create, after a few seconds, this API will be imported and will be displayed on the left side in the Azure API Management blade. And as you can see here, if I open this Cars Island API, you can see that those are my endpoints available in my API. Exactly the same endpoints I showed you there in the Swagger definition here. Yeah, those different endpoints like car reservation, inquiry, etc. And now what I can do, I can of course click some of the operations, so like get list with available cars here, and I can also test this endpoint. So here I can click send, yeah, and we can see that there is 200 OK status returned, and you can see exactly the same cars returned as I showed you on the Swagger UI. So you can call this API directly from this Azure API Management blade. And there is one more thing, it's really important. Under the settings tab, there is web service URL, and you have to fill it out manually in this case to make sure that Azure API Management knows where to forward your requests. So it's really important to provide this address of the backend service. So in this case, this is my Azure Web App address. I can copy it, paste it here, as you can see, yeah, and it will be used by API Management to forward the requests. And once we have it here, as I mentioned, we can test it. Yeah, in this case, you can see, for instance, that the request URL is the main URL of the Azure API Management /API/car/all. Yeah, and it's exactly the same like for this backend service, which is originally hosted using Azure Web App. Of course, I can add the suffix. So in this case, I could say that this will be Cars Island API like this, and this will be added as a suffix. Yeah, but I don't want to do it right now. So there will be a main address of the gateway. Okay, great. So now, once I imported this API, we can talk about the products. So let me show you that really quickly. I have my API imported, and I can now decide how to make it available to developers. So under the products, there are different products, Starter and Unlimited. Those two are provided by Azure API Management by default. I didn't create them. And if I click Starter product, for instance, you can see that here, this is my Starter product. There are also settings. So we can see, for instance, information that with Starter product, subscribers will be able to run 5 calls per minute up to maximum of 100 calls per week. Yeah, so this is like a trial version of our API. We can see that this product is published, and this product requires subscription. So in this case, a developer will have to register, obtain a subscription key, and this subscription key has to be used in the HTTP header to access this specific API. There is also this additional option called requires approval. So for some products, we can require additional approval from administrator. So developer can sign up, yeah, register in the developer portal, but still Azure API Management administrator has to claim this access. So if I will click this one, even if developer will be registered, I have to manually approve this submission. Yeah, so this is really important. And now under the APIs here, as you can see, there is one API, the Echo API, but I can add other one. So in this case, I can add Cars Island API, for instance. Yeah, so this is really important that if you have more APIs imported to Azure API Management, you can still add them under this product. So this is what I mentioned during the presentation in the PowerPoint, that you can treat product as a box, and inside this box, there are multiple APIs available. And access to this box is controlled by the groups. Yeah, so administrator can open box and have access to different APIs. Developers have to register and then they can use those APIs, and guests just can see what's inside, but they cannot use it. So that's the difference. So in this case, I can add those APIs, and then I can also set up policies for this starter product. So please note that for the starter product, there is inbound policy configured. The rate limit calls is set to 5. Renewal period is 1 minute, so 60 seconds. And quota calls is set to 100, and renewal period is 1 week. So this is something what was included in the description for this product, that you can call this API 5 times within 60 seconds, but during 1 week, you can send only 100 calls, and then you will be throttled. So this is really important. And as you can see, I have this policy here, and it is applied to each API under this starter product. Yeah. So if developer subscribe to obtain the access to specific API under starter product, this policy will be applied. So this is really important. And now, when it comes to the custom product, this is the one I created. And under the custom product, I added this Cars Island API. Yeah, so I decided that I want to show you that you can create custom products. I have API added here, Cars Island. I do not have any policies here yet because you can set up them later for specific endpoints too. And before we move forward, one important information, that with those products, we have groups, as I mentioned before. Yeah, so in this case, if I scroll down under Developer Portal, we have this section called groups. And as you can see, we have administrators, developers, and guests. And if I open developers, for instance, you can see that in this case, the member is me, and also there is one developer, Daniel developer. Yeah, I registered this account, so you can see the members. So different members under different groups. And now, if you want to provide the access to those APIs, you can use Developer Portal available in the Azure API Management. So in this case, under Developer Portal section, there is a portal overview. And if you can click it, the Developer Portal will be opened with Designer. And this is the place, as you can see, let me show you that in the incognito mode. So this is the Developer Portal for Cars Island. As you can see, you can customize logo, images, colors of the buttons, background, etc. So everything is possible here, almost everything, of course. And this is the Developer Portal. And if I get back here, as you can see, as an administrator, I can click different parts of this Developer Portal. So for instance, here, I can change the text. Yeah. So in this case, I can modify this text, as you can see, move it to the right, to the center, etc. Change the font, etc. So in this case, for instance, I can make it bold. Yeah. And I can save changes, yeah, and those changes are now saved. And now if I refresh this one, you will see that it is the same as before. Why? Because once you apply the changes, you have to get back to the management portal and you have to click this publish button and confirm it. And once you confirm it, the new version of the developer portal will be then published. And after a few seconds, it should be visible to developers. So we can wait for that. There should be a bolded font in a minute. But let me get back to the developer portal for a minute, because here I want to also show you that I can modify different pages of the API portal. So this is the main page, of course, but there is also API list page. So I can go to the APIs and see how this page will look like. As you can see, there is a Cars Island API listed. I can go to the products tab also. So in this case, if I go to the products list, you can see that there are different products together with descriptions, and you can also customize this experience. And of course, there are different pages like sign up and sign in. Yeah. So let me get back to the portal here. And once you import the API and you are ready to make it available to developers, you can just give developers this link to the API Management Developer Portal. It can be found in the main tab of the API Management here, Developer Portal URL. And the developer then can open it and they can click Explore APIs. And they can see, for instance, that, okay, there is a Cars Island API available. And why they can see it? Because for the product, which is called custom, what I did here, I decided that this product will be available to guests. So I do not have to create an account to see this API. So what I can do here, I can click Cars Island API. Yeah, I can see all the endpoints that are available on this API. And also what I can do, I can click try it out. And now if I click send, you can see that I have 401 unauthorized. Why? Because the OCP API Management subscription key was not added in the header. And so this header, OCP API subscription key, has to be added as a header to be able to call this endpoint. So as I mentioned, as a guest, I can see the API structure, I can go through the endpoints, but I will not be able to test and validate this API. So the subscription key is missing. And of course, as I mentioned before, for the specific products, you can disable this subscription, and then everyone who has anonymized access will be able to use your API. But I do not recommend doing this. So once I want to use it, I have to go to the sign up page. Here I have to provide my some details related to my profile, like email, password, confirm this password, first name, last name, and then enter the CAPTCHA code here. And once I sign up, I can sign in. So in this case, I have this test account I showed you before, and I can click sign in. And now I have access to the developer portal as an authenticated user. And I can go to the profile, and you will see that under the profile, this is my user profile. You can see that here I have custom product subscription. There is the primary key and secondary key. I can show them, yeah, regenerate them. And if I go to the APIs, here I can now select Cars Island API and select get list with available cars, try it out. And now under subscription key, as you can see, now I can either use primary key or secondary key. So let me select the first one. And now I can click send button. And after a few seconds, I have 200 OK returned with all the cars available in my Cars Island company. So this is really cool. Because this can be a single point of truth about your APIs. And if you have many different teams, like front-end teams working on your web applications, you have mobile teams, desktop apps teams, and they need a consistent layer and access to APIs, this is the way to go. So there is this great developer portal. You can share this with your developers. They will have secured access to this because they will have to authenticate first. And then you can use these APIs directly here in the API Management developer portal. And this is really important because as I mentioned before, if you have some other APIs that are not available publicly, or you don't want to provide access to them, you can use this API Management developer portal and and select under which product this will be available and to which kind of groups like guests or developers, and you are good to go. So I really encourage you to check that one. So now, once I get back to the home, as you can see, this is the main page, and also the change related to font was applied. Yeah, so the new version of the developer portal is available. So now, if I get back to the API management, I can close it here. And let me get back to the APIs section and Cars Island. As I mentioned, you can apply policies at different levels. Yeah, I mentioned about those policies, like for instance, caching policy or a token validation policy, etc. So you can apply those, or quota policy. Yeah, this is a good example. You can apply it on the product level. So once again, the starter product, as you can see, under policies, starter product has this rate limit and quota limit. Yeah, so I can call 5 times per minute this specific API under this product, and I can send 100 calls within 1 week. And this is the policy for the product. So this policy will be applied to each API that is within this starter product. But also what I can do, I can decide that I don't want to use any policies at the product level. So this is why I created this custom product, you can see. And under policies, there are no policies defined. Why? Because I can also apply those policies at the API level. So as you can see, if I click Cars Island API, for instance, and I will scroll right, there are, let me show you that, there are 3 types of policies: inbound, outbound, and outbound and backend in this case. And for instance, inbound processing, under inbound processing, I can click those characters here. And as you can see, I can define policies for all operations, but only for this specific API. So at the product level, there will be no policies applied, but then there is API, and I can apply some policies globally to all endpoints that are available within my API. So I can do it here. And also what I can do, I can apply policy at the endpoint level. So as you can see here, I have this get list with available cars for rent endpoint. And here, what I have, I can set inbound processing policy on this specific endpoint. So let me open the policies for this specific endpoint. As you can see here, I set up a caching policy. And in this case, I want to cache information about the cars for 60 seconds. So what I'm doing here, under inbound policy, I set up cache lookup vary by developers false. So I don't want to vary this this call per developer. I want to always cache this response for this specific endpoint. for 60 seconds. As you can see, caching type is internal here, so I'm using internal cache. Oh, sorry for that. Internal cache. And also under the outbound, I'm caching it for 60 seconds. So now every time that I will call this get list with available cars, so here, if I go to the Explore APIs, once again, Cars Island API and get list with available cars for rent. First time, I will get the response from my API, of course, but then if I click send, I will have, okay, there is some issue, but request. Okay, there is some problem with course, but nevertheless, if I will try to call this this endpoint once again, then the response will be returned much faster because the backend will not be called. The response will be taken from the cache. So in this case, I can also set such policy at the endpoint level. So once again, just to clarify, policies, you can apply them at the product level, API level, and endpoint level. So 3 steps here. And also what I have here, there is this endpoint called make reservation. Yeah, so I want to make reservation for a specific car that I selected. So in this case, this backend, this specific backend is secured by Azure AD B2C. So I have Azure AD B2C configured to be able to authenticate users. And once I call this endpoint, I want to make sure that there is authorization header included and the access token will be validated using my Azure API, Azure AD B2C instance, so carsisland-b2c-login.com. And as you can see here, also I'm checking if my specific claim, so SCP claim in this case, in the token, equals access as user. So I will validate access token with using my Azure AD B2C instance. I will check if the audience is set to my API. And also I will check if there is a scope called access as user. And this is really cool because in this case, even if you do not have authentication implemented on the backend side, authorization and authentication, I would say, you can still use API management to apply this policy, this inbound policy to verify token. So if you have like an old backend where you cannot enable, like for instance, integration with the Azure AD B2C for some reason, you can still use those policies and you can validate access tokens. So that's really cool. Of course, this is for the specific endpoint, but again, as I mentioned before, you can apply this policy at the API level to validate tokens for each endpoint or every API. So that's really cool. So this is really important. And when it comes to the so in the end, because I see that we have 5 minutes only so in the end, it's very important also to mention that as I mentioned before, we have those revisions and versions. So here, if I click those 3 dots next to Cars Island API, I can add a version. And if I do it, as you can see here, I can add v2, for instance, and versioning scheme can be path, header, or query string. So in this case, I will select path. And there is a full, also I have to provide a full API version name. Yeah, in this case, Cars Island API v2. And I can select products here. So in this case, let me do it like this. And if I click create, then the second version of this API will be configured, and I can access it using this v2 endpoint. So that's really cool because I can still use my previous original API, as you can see here. So this is my first version, But also I can go to the version 2, and if I decide that I want to import some updates about my backend, I can click three dots, select import, and then I can again import the Open API specification. So that's really cool. So I can have different versions, and also what I can do, I can add a revision. So this is something for, as I mentioned, for changes. It's not for the breaking changes. It's for more for developers, just to make some changes, some tests, and without breaking the production load. So this is about the versioning and revisions. And just to sum up, as you saw, using Azure API Management and start using this, it's really simple. Once you create an instance, I recommend to use developer tier for start. You can set up developer portal, you can set up products, you can import APIs, and then make those APIs available for specific products and groups. And then you can customize developer portal to provide a consistent gateway for your developers to be able to use your APIs. So this is about the Azure API Management today. I hope that you found it interesting and helpful. And now I will turn off the screen sharing, and I'm happy to answer some questions because I know that we are running out of time. So let me quickly check the live Q&A. It's loading. Okay, so let me start with the question. So first question from Erwin. What is the difference between using the developer portal and using normal API, but equipped with Swagger NuGet, for example, that has index to load API definition, for example? So what is the difference? The difference is that when you use this NuGet package, like for instance Swashbuckle for ASP.NET Core, and you have Open API definition, that's fine. But this is only for your one specific API, yes? But when you use developer portal, you can provide access to multiple APIs. So you can import their Open API definitions, and then you can say that you want to provide access to multiple APIs to different developers, yeah? So if you have, like, for instance, 4 different APIs, each API has own Swashbuckle implementation, Open API implementation, and those developers, of course, can use those different APIs, Swagger UIs, yeah, that's what I showed at the beginning. But it's much easier to have one place where you can go, like Azure API Management Developer Portal. You can open it, you can go through different APIs that are imported, and you can test them directly from this developer portal. So that's the advantage of using Azure API Management Developer Portal over the Swagger UI for specific APIs. So I hope that will help you. One more question from Erwin. Does it mean products equals applications or equals app service / functions behind, for example? Or what is the best practice to group such products? Yeah, so that's a very good question. So no, the product does not equal application, and not every time. Yeah, so you have to think about the product as an abstraction for APIs. So you can group different APIs under specific product and restrict the access to those APIs using this specific product. So in this case, when talking about, for instance, about the Cars Island fake car rental company, if I would have 3 different APIs for some reason, now I have 1, but I could have 3 different APIs, I could place them under the Cars Island product, yeah, and this is a dedicated product under which I provide access to those different APIs. But of course, you can run your business and have different kind of the APIs, yeah, and then for instance, you want to provide trial version of those APIs to your users. And then for the trial product, you will apply different policies, as I showed you, like with the quota limit. And you can provide another product, which is called Unlimited, for those users who pay the subscription. And they will have unlimited access to your APIs. So the product does not equal application. I would say that product is the abstraction at the top of the different applications, APIs in this case. One more question. What is the best practice for version? Should we change the DLL version, assembly version as well, that reflects API version? Do they have correlation for best practice, as API version may not have dots in version? So when it comes to the best practice, I know that there is a lot of confusion and there are advantages and disadvantages connected to using version of the APIs, because some people think that you should not version your APIs. You can find different articles on the internet. So when it comes to the best practice, I can tell you about ASP.NET Core, for instance. In the ASP.NET Core, when I use versioning, I just try to extend the controllers. So in this case, I'm saying that, okay, on the controller that is called, for instance, cars, I will have those different endpoints, and those different endpoints have different versioning. Yeah. And in this case, if I want to extend the functionality of some endpoint, I will just add another endpoint with the different version. Yeah. In this case. So when it comes to the changing of the DLL version, so assembly version, I would not consider it as a best practice in this case. The best idea here is to have like a consistent structure of versioning within your source code, to make sure that once developer opens your solution and see the source code, there is a clear statement that this controller has two versions. Those endpoints have 3 different versions, and developers can clearly reference those different versions and endpoints. Yeah, in this case. And once you have it, you can then also import this to Azure API Management, and of course use it like using the URL I showed you. The next question, since app service or function API in the backend may have limitation, we can set up throttle policy in the Azure API Management, correct? But not to drop, but queue, slow down to ensure that backend API is not overloaded, but still success on the client side, although performance drop. Yes, so as far as I remember, there is a possible way to do it when it comes to the policies. But you have to remember that when it comes to the HTTP requests, there is some limitation on the time that is connected with getting response. So it's about the protocol, not about the Azure API Management. But I didn't do it in the past, but I suppose that it could be done with the policies, advanced policies in the Azure API Management. Are there free products for authentication in one API? Are there free products for authentication in one API and uncheck require subscription fee for that product? Okay, I'm not sure if I understand. So are there free products for authentication in one API and uncheck require subscription key for that product? I'm not sure if I understand this question, but do you mean to have like 3 different products, and inside those 3 different products to have APIs imported and then uncheck require subscription for this one specific product? Is it correct? Because yes, you can do it. So developer can decide to which product they want to subscribe. So if they subscribe to trial product, for instance, they will have this quota limit. Yeah, if they will be approved for using unlimited subscription, they can use those APIs without any limitations. But I'm not sure if I got your question, so I apologize if I miss it. Next question, using API management, where authorization take place is still on the backend API or also can be in API management? Example, to restrict the record level or parameter level. Can tokens just pass through, or what is the best practice with API management? Yeah, so in this case, there are two ways you can use. You can either validate those tokens on the API management using policies, as I showed you, for example, with this Azure AD B2C token, but still, once you validate it, still this token can be passed to your API, which is also secured by Azure AD B2C. So in this case, when it comes to the tokens, this is more about your backend specification, because if you have some backend applications that are not secured, for instance, by the Azure AD B2C or Azure AD, the easiest way is to use this policy on the Azure API management to restrict the access and validate access tokens. Yeah. So when it comes to the best practice, there is no best practice. It's more about your business decision. Yeah. If you have your existing APIs that are not secured by Azure AD, for instance, but you want to secure them with Azure AD, you can either change the implementation on their side, or if you want to make it fast, you can apply the policy on the Azure API management and then restrict direct access to those APIs behind it. Yeah, so it's more like this. Okay, so I see that there are no more questions. So I hope that I answered all of them and you found them helpful. So yeah, that's it, I think. So thank you so much for great questions. Thank you so much for joining my session. I hope you found it interesting. And I really encourage you to check Azure API Management. And it was great to present during all those 4 events called Apps on Azure. So I hope that we can meet somewhere else during some other event. So Hussam, back to you, I think.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It was a great journey through this series this month, taking us through all these most popular apps on Azure and how we can implement them in the cloud applications. Thank you for dedicating time to share your experience with our community, and we hope to have you again in the future for more topics. And for everyone who's watching us live or later in the recorded sessions, there are resources for you to follow along, and everything is recorded and will be available on YouTube. And there are a few Learn modules that are recommended for you to continue the journey and learn more. So you can do that, and you can always also keep an eye on TechPoint Factory, which is Daniel's blog, where he publishes more content about this project and how you integrate different services. So you also can learn more by following his blog as well. Don't forget to spend a minute or two just giving us some feedback on the Reactor sessions. The survey requires you to use an event ID specific for today's session, but it gives us an idea about these sessions and the topics that you would love to see at the Reactor. So please share your feedback with us, and also be part of the Reactor newsletter. This is a monthly update about all the sessions and workshops that are happening across the Reactors. So hope you all stay well, and we see you in the next one. Thank you, everyone, and thanks, Daniel, again.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.